3 years already since his last EP, but DPR Live and Dream Perfect Regime are finally back with the long-awaited album Is Anybody Out There? This album took them around 2 years to make, and the least to say is that with Anybody Out There, they pretty much took everybody off guard. Based on a spaceflight-like storyline, the aim with this album was to put the listeners into the protagonist's head. Dream Perfect Regime wanted the people to live a real experience through this album. Was all of this that surprising? Not really, actually. We already had a taste of the thematic of this album with DPR Cream's double single, The Voyager 737. The title was already pretty transparent, but it was even more obvious with the MV for Color Drive. From the imagery to the radio communication between Cream and Live.
Is anybody out there? Is anybody out there?
So, are these the beginning of DPR cinematic universe? Only they know, but things promise to be interesting in the future. But anyway, that's not the point of this video. Welcome everybody, I'm Ellie from K.viar, and today we're gonna do an analysis of Is Anybody Out There? Let's first talk about the album as a whole. As Ian and Live said, the whole album is actually one storybook. But in my opinion, to see a double storyline in Is Anybody Out There would also make sense. There would be the spaceflight storyline and the storyline about the protagonist's mental state, directly inspired from Live's own experience. But you can also see the spaceflight storyline like a metaphor of his mental state. Either way, I don't have the undeniable truth, but as Umberto Eco said in The Open Work, every reception of a work of art is both an interpretation and a performance of it. Because in every reception, the work takes on a fresh perspective for itself. So everybody is gonna have a different interpretation of this album depending on their own experience. I'm just giving some analysis here. If we start from the principle that Is Anybody Out There is a storybook, then the track Here Goes Nothing is the beginning of the story, while No Rescue Needed is that end. As a matter of fact, it seems that Here Goes Nothing and Geronimo, so the following track, are linked. Literally in the lyrics, since in the end of Here Goes Nothing, Live repeats the word Geronimo multiple times. But the songs are also bounded by their instrumentals because the beginning of Geronimo is none other than an extract from Here Goes Nothing. What you hear at the end of Geronimo is the sound of the crash of a spaceship. However, if you pay attention to Here Goes Nothing and Geronimo lyrics, Live crashed even before Geronimo. He crashed mentally.
Cause I hate that I fall. Hate that I crash.
So if we follow the spaceflight storyline, it could be because he lost himself mentally, went into a state of confusion that he crashed in the first place. In his spaceship, he first crashed mentally, driving him to a literal crash. There is kind of a duality between those two tracks though. In the beginning, the instrumental of Here Goes Nothing is rather calm. Live expresses his inner turmoil, he has a lot of questions, but progressively the instrumentals become more intense, until it finally becomes frantic. Geronimo is like the result of that. Live left all his questions in Here Goes Nothing and is literally losing his grip in Geronimo. The questions are a dead end, hence the title Here Goes Nothing. So in Geronimo, it just coats along, also explaining the title Geronimo. Because, according to Wikipedia, one of the meanings for Geronimo is a US Army airborne exclamation occasionally used by jumping skydivers, or, more generally, anyone about to jump from a great height, or also as a general exclamation of exhilaration. If we take a step back, those two songs can also be seen as an illustration of the turbulence Live had to face. The swing mood, the frustration he lost control, so once again the
Cause I hate that I fall. I hate that I crash. I hate when I run.
I hate this victim mentality.
And the crash would be a metaphor for his breaking point. I'm not a psychologist, but after the Coming to You Live World Tour, Live decided to go on hiatus because it was just too much. He needed to clear his head. But I don't want to make assumptions either, so I won't develop this point any further. After the crash, the breakdown, comes the waking with To Whoever. Live wakes up from his slumber and has a flashback on his life, what he had to go through, from his childhood to the beginning of his musical career until now. This track is probably the most intimate from the album and is mirroring the track To Myself from his previous album Coming to You Live. There is something pretty troubling though. To Myself could be interpreted as the story of a person who, after a lot of self-questioning, finally found himself thanks to music. In To Myself, the lyrics are confident. However, To Whoever seems to show a relapse. In To Whoever, he talks again about the questioning he had before. Talks about his childhood in Guam, a few years later the hardships he had to went through, his dad's cancer. But then there is DPR, there is Coming to You Live, and therefore there is the confident track To Myself. So what could have gone wrong from this point? Let's just look at the lyrics.
So many questions with no answers. Where do we go? God, I don't know. Where do I go?
Now fast forward 5 years. Alright, cool.
Let that lick.
I guess a lot has happened since then. But here I am, asking myself the same questions.
Time passed, a lot has been achieved, but in the end the questions are still there. So while To Myself was like a pep talk to, well, himself, in To Whoever, things have changed. It's as if all just became too much. So much that he has to reach for someone else. To Whoever. If we go back to the storyline, we could explain this title by the fact that it just crashed and is therefore writing down his story for To Whoever find this message. Like a logbook. You can indeed hear a writing sound at the end of the track. Then comes another part of Live's journey into the space. From Out of Control to S.O.S, it's like we were witnessing Live recovery. At first, it's not that easy, as it's explained in Out of Control. In this track, he talks further about his troubles, the constant emotional rollercoaster he must endure. For the album release, he did an Instagram live with Jan, and for this track he explained that concerts were emotionally tiring for him. That when he was going backstage, he just felt an emptiness. The result of this emotional flood is him being out of control. He's losing himself. So, when it just becomes too much, the best solution is to disconnect. And that's none other than the title of the next track. In the Instagram live, with Jan, they explain that when there is too much drama going on in your life, the best thing to do is just to escape, to disconnect. It doesn't mean that you are running away from your problems, but just that you take a step back in order to have a clearer view and to better yourself in the end. That's why the vibe of this track is lighter, with almost a feeling of floating. When you disconnect, all becomes easier. You don't feel your burdens anymore. So if you don't feel your burdens anymore, why S.O.S for the next track then? Well, originally S.O.S stands for Save Our Soul, which is rather contradictory to the last track. Why would it need to be saved? However, here S.O.S doesn't stand for Save Our Soul, but rather for Sailing Over Saturn. Does it help to understand better the track succession? Wow, so far, no. But it's gonna make sense, don't worry. Once again, I will go back to their Instagram live because the explanations they gave are really clear. Why Sailing Over Saturn? During his space trip, Live came across Saturn, and Saturn is a huge planet. So, passing next to Saturn, he got the realization on how small his problem were compared to the immensity of the universe. So, like in Disconnect, Saturn helped Live taking a step back on his troubles. Also, there is something with this song. In a certain part, I have the feeling that he's also doing a critique of our society. I need to thank FS Get Cool for the translation of the track, by the way. It would have been more difficult without them.
I'm passing my Mars, huh? Whoa, so this is how I look, yeah. Whoa, I heard people wanna live here. This is Jordan, this is Jordan, don't remember. But get it out your mind, my friends. Big on there, it's just big, round, Jamie on there. Why can't we just live our lives? Why can't we just love life? 왜 사람들 말만 하면 서로 들을까? 이러면 뻔하잖아 지구의 결말. Please no more dirty news, no more SNS. 지겨워요, no more war, no more stress. And I love my home so 오늘도 그만했으면. Choose love and never hate so we can go beyond.
That's just an interpretation, but with those lyrics, he's probably talking about all the speculation going on how we would have to find another planet to live. Mars has been mentioned since there is a possibility to find water there. But well, from what Live saw during his space trip, Mars is just big, brown and round. So instead, he asks the people if they could just value life better and be more cautious. So, from the beginning of this space trip, a long way has been traveled, with first the downfall, the breakdown, then the crash, and now the recovery. Because, as he said, without the lows there is no high, right? What's next then? Well, love it seems. What has love to do with a space trip storyline? Well, love is often described as a floating-like feeling, as if you weren't subject to gravity anymore. As he said it in Kiss Me, you just have the impression that the universe is yours. But also, love often distracts you from your problems. That's why Oh Girl, Kiss Me and Neon are all fresh and pretty lively, even if Kiss Me is more muted and that this floating feeling is even more prominent. Now our protagonist is revitalized and ready to take over. So comes Legacy. Just a personal appreciation on this track, but Live's verses are especially amazing. He shows an interesting versatility. You can notice that he really played with his flow in this one. But let's go back to the analysis. I would say that there is 3 parts in the song. And this time I would like to thank the channel Bio1 for their translation of the track. The first part is a little bit on ego trip.
Back up, world tour trendsetter to extended plays, full album, you can't touch this. Potential. You fall from a lane.
And then it just snaps and enters this part I was talking about in the presentation video I did about Live and Dream Perfect Regime. Link is in the description. So, I have a feeling that in this part, he criticized the rappers who are settling for following the trends and are only aiming for money and fame. And, as we said in French, ça tire à balles réelles. For instance, with the... That's not him talking, but he's impersonating this kind of rappers. This kind of rappers who pay more attention to their looks, their image, rather than their raps. In the end, they are all rapping the same, talking about guns and using way too much ad-lib for their track to turn up. That's especially noticeable with the
oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Same Alice.
But actually, it's okay. It's because of these kind of rappers that he stand out.
I mean, don't get it too twisted, man. Keep doing you, so I could do me.
As a consequence, for the third part, he basically implies that he prefers action over words. Therefore, I think that with such a title, Legacy refers to their will to inspire artists or aspiring artists to focus on creativity, on what they want to convey, rather than on superficial matters. Finally comes No Rescue Needed. in the end, seems that life found his way again. According to the lyrics, he doesn't care how he came there. But above all, he doesn't overthink anymore. He just lives.
Yeah, do you feel it? Well, I'll feel it. If you don't feel it, just feel it. All I'm saying is just feel it. No, don't think it, just feel it. Feel it in your nerves, feel it in your heart, and then let those feelings curve.
He doesn't care how he get to this planet, how he got to this mental state. Because in the end, what matters the most is that he is doing great, that there is no rescue needed.
No rescue needed.
That's on this very positive note that life's adventure ends, or is that just the beginning? But one of the most incredible things with this album is that whatever you're going through, everybody can relate at some point. So, what are your thoughts on this album? What is your favorite track? As I said, this analysis is just an opinion among the other. My opinion. So, do not hesitate to share your personal feelings about it in the comments. If you like the video, you can also share it will help out a lot. And for some more cool content, you can also subscribe and follow K.viar on Twitter and Instagram. All the links are in the description. See you next time!